The worst day of my life started off like any other pristine Utah morning. I woke at 5:30 a.m. to the pale gray light filtering through our bedroom curtains. Outside, the Wasatch Mountains were just silhouettes against a slowly brightening sky. I quietly slid out of bed, careful not to wake my wife, Emily, who was curled up on her side, her blonde hair fanned over the pillow. For a moment, I paused, watching her breathe in that peaceful sleep. God, I love this woman, I thought, feeling a familiar warmth in my chest. After 10 years of marriage, she still had that effect on me. Determined to start the day strong, I pulled on my running shoes and headed out. The morning air in our Salt Lake City suburb was crisp, carrying the scent of dew-covered grass. I jogged through our quiet neighborhood in Draper, the only sound my steady breaths and the rhythmic thump of my feet on the pavement. Running always cleared my mind. I was turning 35 this year and prided myself on staying in shape. 3 miles later, sweat trickling down my temples, I slowed to a walk under a canopy of early autumn leaves just beginning to turn gold. The sun was rising, painting the eastern sky orange. It looked like it would be a beautiful day. By the time I returned home, our two-story house was alive with morning activity. Through the open garage, I heard the clatter of cereal bowls and the animated chatter of my children. Smiling, I toweled off and stepped inside. The smell of coffee brewing mingled with the sugary scent of waffle batter. Saturday morning tradition. "Morning, Dad." My 9-year-old son, Ben, greeted me as I entered the kitchen. He was already dressed in jeans and a Minecraft t-shirt, a smudge of syrup on his chin from sneaking an early sample of breakfast. Beside him, his little sister Clara, 7, waved enthusiastically with a fork in her hand. Her brown hair was an untamed halo around her face, and she had mismatched socks as usual. "Morning, kiddos," I chuckled, catching Clara's sticky hand mid-wave and giving it a playful squeeze. "Mom roped you into waffle duty, huh?" Ben grinned. "I like helping. Mom lets me pour the batter." He pointed to the waffle iron on the counter. From behind the kitchen island, Emily appeared with 2 steaming mugs. She wore her plush blue robe and had that slightly frazzled but radiant look that always made my heart flutter. Even with minimal makeup and her hair in a messy bun, Emily was gorgeous. At 33, she had matured from the carefree college girl I fell in love with into a confident woman. She balanced the mugs in one hand and in the other held out a protein smoothie toward me. "Strawberry banana, extra protein," she said by way of greeting. "Figured you'd want this after your run." Her voice was bright, everyday normal. I leaned across the counter to kiss her cheek. She smelled of vanilla and the faint trace of the lavender lotion she applied each morning. "You know me so well," I smiled, accepting the smoothie. "Thanks, Em." I took a long sip. It was cold, sweet, and exactly what I needed. She gave me a mock-stern look. "You keep running like you're training for a marathon, Ethan, and maybe I'll actually convince you to sign up for the Salt Lake Marathon next spring." I laughed. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Running at dawn is one thing. Running 26 miles with a crowd might kill me." Clara giggled. "Daddy, you're not gonna die. You're strong." She flexed her little arm to demonstrate. "That's right, sweet pea," Emily said warmly, reaching over to ruffle Clara's hair. "Your daddy is the strongest." Her eyes met mine over the rim of her coffee cup, full of love and contentment. Moments like this, my beautiful wife teasing me, our kids happy and healthy, made me feel like the luckiest man alive. I had a fulfilling career as an aerospace engineer at a local defense contractor, a cozy home in a good neighborhood, and a family that was my world. Everything was, by all appearances, perfect. We sat down together at the breakfast table, enjoying fluffy waffles drizzled in maple syrup and topped with berries. The kids chattered about their weekend plans, soccer practice for Ben, a play date for Clara with the neighbor's daughter that afternoon. I chimed in with suggestions while Emily listened with a content smile, reminding them to clean their rooms before any play. We were a normal, bustling family. After we cleared the dishes, I glanced at the time. I had promised my best friend Adam Parker that I'd swing by his place this morning to help him set up for a barbecue our families were having later that day. Adam and I had been friends since college, and our families were inseparable. He was practically an uncle to my kids, and his wife, Samantha, was one of Emily's closest friends. We often joked that our friendship was an arranged marriage between our families, where Adam and I came as a package deal, and thankfully our wives had hit it off as well. "I'm going to shower and head to Adam's, help with the BBQ prep." I said, placing my plate in the sink. You okay getting the munchkins to soccer and Clara's playdate? Emily waved a hand. Go, go. We've got it covered. Sam and I are taking the kids to the park after soccer practice anyway. We'll meet you boys at the barbecue around noon. She came around the counter and adjusted the collar of my t-shirt, a habitual loving gesture. Don't forget to pick up some drinks on your way, okay? I gave a mock salute. Yes, ma'am. On it. Her fingers lingered briefly on my chest, straightening an imaginary wrinkle. It was a small touch, but it sent a pleasant shiver through me. All right, she said softly, looking up into my eyes. Have fun with your boyfriend, she teased, smirking. I rolled my eyes playfully. Jealous? Hardly, she quipped, patting my shoulder. Just don't let him rope you into some wild scheme. You know how you two get when you're together. I laughed as I headed toward the stairs. We're model citizens, I swear. Back in a flash. While I showered, I mentally ran through the checklist for the day. Life was busy but good. We had a comfortable routine and a strong support network with friends like the Parkers. I couldn't ask for a better friend than Adam. He was loyal, witty, and our families meshed so well. Sometimes I wondered what I'd done to deserve such stability and happiness. If someone had told me that by the end of that day my entire world would come crashing down, I would have laughed them off. Because in that golden morning moment, betrayal was the furthest thing from my mind. I threw on some jeans and a casual polo shirt after my shower. Before leaving, I peeked into Clara's room, where Emily was braiding our daughter's hair for soccer. They were chatting about matching hair ribbons. The sight filled me with a quiet joy. See you soon, girls, I said, leaning on the doorframe. Clara gave me a gap-toothed smile and a wave, her attention on the upcoming playdate. Emily blew me a kiss, mid-braid, with a warm grin. Walking out to the driveway, I felt an immense swell of gratitude. The day was mild, sunlight spilling over the mountains into the valley. I hopped into my pride and joy, a midnight blue Ford F-150 pickup I'd bought last year. It was perhaps a cliché, Utah dad car, but I loved it. The engine purred as I backed out, ready to tackle the day's simple pleasures. Good friends, good food, and family. I had no inkling that this ordinary Saturday morning would mark the end of life as I knew it. Chapter 2. A Fateful Discovery. The barbecue at the Parkers was in full swing by early afternoon. Our two families and a few other friends gathered in Adam and Samantha's spacious backyard in Sandy, the grill sizzling with burgers and hot dogs. Kids dashed around playing tag on the lawn as adults chatted over cold beers and homemade lemonade. It was the kind of easy, laughter-filled gathering that made weekends special. By 3 p.m., the late summer sun was high and we all sought shade under a large striped awning. I sat with Adam at the patio table, savoring a second helping of Sam's famous potato salad and half listening as he recounted a funny story from work. Adam managed a team at a marketing firm and always had hilarious client anecdotes. I laughed at the right moments, but my attention strayed across the yard to where Emily and Sam sat together on a bench under the big oak tree. They were heads together, deep in conversation about something. Emily's hand gestures were animated, her face bright with interest. It warmed me to see my wife so happy with her friends. She and Samantha shared a close bond, almost like sisters. Meanwhile, Sam's husband was my brother-in-arms. If there was anyone I trusted nearly as much as my wife, it was Adam. He must have noticed my distracted gaze because he clapped me on the shoulder. Hey man, you still with me? I know my work stories can be boring, but usually not coma-inducing, he teased. I chuckled and shook my head. Sorry, I nodded toward the women. Any idea what those two are plotting now? They look thick as thieves. Adam leaned back, following my line of sight. Sam was laughing now, and Emily pretended to zip her lips with a secretive grin. Who knows? Last time they huddled like that, we ended up volunteering to build sets for the school play, he groaned. I spent an entire weekend covered in glue and glitter. I laughed. I remember. Hey, at least the kids loved our sparkly trees on stage. He shrugged, smiling. True. Could be worse. We could have wives that hate each other. Ours gang up on us instead. Yeah, we're lucky, I agreed wholeheartedly. I lifted my beer bottle in a little toast to best friends and better halves. Adam clinked his bottle against mine. Here, here. As the sun dipped, painting the sky in orange and pink, the gathering wound down. Clara tugged on my sleeve, yawning dramatically. Daddy, I'm sleepy. I scooped her up. You had a big day playing, Bean? Ready to head home? She nodded, laying her head on my shoulder. Ben ambled over, grass stains on his knees and looking equally tuckered out from soccer and nonstop running around with the Parker's dog. Emily appeared at my side, her cheeks flushed with sun and laughter. We should get these monkeys home, she said softly. They've just about burned off all their energy. We said our goodbyes with hugs and promises to do it again soon. As always, Emily and Sam embraced tightly and made plans to meet up in a few days for lunch. Adam gave me a quick one-armed hug, clapping my back. Drive safe, bud. Let's do a guy's fishing trip one of these weekends. Absolutely, I agreed. The thought of quiet mountains and fishing rods appealed to me. Maybe next month, when the leaves turn. I'll hold you to it. The kids were asleep before we even pulled out of the Parker subdivision. The drive home was peaceful. Twilight settled over the valley, and the city lights were blinking on in the distance. Emily rested her hand on my arm as I steered. Thanks for going to help Adam this morning, she said softly. He really appreciates you. I glanced at her and smiled. Of course. He's done the same for me plenty. Besides, I think he mostly wanted an excuse to hang out. We ended up playing video games with the kids half the time. She laughed under her breath. Sounds about right. Sam teased that we should just merge our households at this point. I smirked. Tempting. Then we husbands could sneak off to watch football while you wives handle everything else. She pinched my arm playfully. In your dreams, mister. We drove in companionable silence the rest of the way. I was content, if a bit drowsy from the sun and food. Back home, I carried Clara to her bed as Emily guided a groggy Ben by the hand to his. We tucked them in, grass-scented, sunburned, and smiling faintly even in sleep. Downstairs, the house was finally quiet. Emily stretched and sighed. I'm going to take a shower. I smell like smoke and sunscreen. All right, I'll clean up a bit, I said, though there wasn't much to tidy after a day out. She paused on her way upstairs to peck my lips. It was a brief but sweet kiss, tasting of the lemonade she'd been sipping. Love you, she whispered. Love you too, I replied automatically, watching her disappear up the staircase. In the living room, I collected a few stray toys and half-empty juice boxes the kids had left in the morning. I smiled at a picture on the mantel, our family portrait from last Christmas. The four of us wore goofy holiday sweaters, and Emily's eyes sparkled as she laughed at something the photographer said. I felt that familiar swell of pride and love. We had built a beautiful life. Soon, I heard the faint rush of water through the pipes, Emily in the master bathroom shower. I picked up Clara's favorite stuffed bunny from the couch, planning to return it to her room. As I headed upstairs, something on the desk in our small home office caught my eye. It was Emily's journal. The journal was a pretty hardcover notebook with floral designs, one I remembered buying her last year on a whim. Emily used to scribble in diaries back in college to sort out her thoughts. Recently, she'd mentioned getting back into journaling as a stress reliever. Normally, she kept it in her nightstand drawer, but now it lay out in the open, almost invitingly, on the desk near the hall. I took a few steps toward the open office door, intending simply to close the cover and put it away for her. As I reached the desk, I saw it was open, flat on its belly, pages up. My eyes drifted down before I could think better of it, and I spotted my own name in her neat handwriting. My heart fluttered with the guilt of a husband about to invade his wife's privacy. I shouldn't read that, I chided myself silently. Yet my name was right there, mid-sentence. It couldn't hurt to just see what she wrote about me, right? Maybe she wrote something sweet or funny about the barbecue. I set Clara's stuffed bunny aside and carefully lifted the journal, glancing toward the open doorway. The shower was still running. Emily wouldn't be out for a while. I reasoned with myself that if there was anything very personal, I'd stop. But this looked like a short entry and curiosity tugged at me. Taking a breath, I began to read the page. September 7th. I saw Ethan playing with the kids in the yard, and for a moment I felt such intense guilt I thought I might break down right there. He's so good to us, to me. He doesn't deserve any of this. But I can't stop. I blinked. My eyes froze on the words intense guilt. A cold prickle crept up my spine. Doesn't deserve any of this. Can't stop. What was she talking about? I continued, my pulse quickening. I can't stop what I'm feeling for him. When I'm with Ethan, everything feels normal and fine, and I love him dearly. But the moments with Adam, those stolen, intoxicating moments, make me feel alive in a way I can't explain. And that makes me feel wretched afterward because I am betraying a man who trusts me completely. Today at the barbecue, sitting across from Ethan while knowing what Adam and I did just 2 days ago in that hotel, God, it was hard to keep smiling. My hands started trembling. The lines of ink seemed to blur and then snap back into sharp focus as each word drove into my brain. Moments with Adam, stolen, hotel, betraying a man who trusts me. No, no, this had to be some sick misunderstanding. I could scarcely breathe as I forced myself to read on. We agreed to cool things off after that night at the Hampton Inn, at least until we figure things out. It was supposed to be a final goodbye, but we ended up making love twice, desperate, like we might never see each other again. And then the next morning he was at our breakfast table with Ethan, laughing like nothing happened. I felt so dirty. How can I hate myself and still want Adam so much? A strangled noise escaped my throat. I realized I had pressed a hand over my mouth. I had to. A hot surge of nausea and disbelief threatened to make me cry out. My knees felt weak, so I sank into the office chair heavily, the journal clutched in shaking fingers. My best friend, my wife and my best friend. A hotel, making love. The phrases swarmed like angry hornets in my skull. A wave of dizziness passed over me. I actually wondered if I might faint or vomit. I tried to swallow, but my mouth was bone dry. Sweat had broken out on my forehead despite the air-conditioned chill of the house. I forced myself to keep reading, if only to confirm this nightmare was real and not some bizarre fiction my mind concocted. Adam says he's going to tell Sam everything. I begged him not to. I'm not ready for that fallout. It would destroy so many relationships at once. I feel cowardly. But I also know I can't keep lying to Ethan's face. He is so kind, so faithful. When I think of how much it will hurt him if he finds out, I almost confessed last night. I nearly blurted it out when he rubbed my shoulders. Maybe I want him to know so this weight can lift, but I'm terrified he'll leave me and take the kids. I couldn't bear losing them. I'm a horrible wife and a horrible mother for risking our family like this. I keep telling myself it was only these few times, but even one time is too many. Adam and I swore it was over after the hotel, and I hope to God we can keep that promise now. I stopped reading. The journal slipped from my hands onto the desk with a dull thud. There was more written below, but I physically couldn't read another word. My vision was tunneling and blurry at the edges. I realized I was breathing fast, shallow, rapid pants like a panicked animal. I shut my eyes, willing myself to inhale deeply, trying to keep it together. But how does one keep it together when their entire world just got yanked out from under them? My wife, my Emily, had an affair. With Adam, of all people. They had been together in secret in hotels, possibly multiple times. The journal said few times and implied at least one more fling at a hotel 2 days ago. That would have been Thursday. On Thursday, I recalled, Emily said she had a late meeting and Sam had covered to watch our kids for an hour until I got home from work. My stomach twisted violently. That must have been when it happened. Instead of a meeting, she'd been with him. And Sam, God, Sam was unknowingly babysitting for the very people betraying her. A red haze of anger swirled with a devastation in my chest. The betrayal ran so deep on so many levels it was overwhelming. My best friend had come to my home, eaten at my table, joked with me, knowing he had just slept with my wife. My wife who kissed me goodnight with those same lips that spoke love to someone else in a motel bed. I bolted up from the chair, unable to sit still. My reflection in the dark computer screen on the desk looked foreign. Pale face, jaw clenched, eyes wild. I gripped the edge of the desk until my knuckles turned white, trying to steady the trembling in my limbs. Upstairs, I heard the water shut off. The shower was done. She doesn't know I know flashed through my mind. That realization cut through some of the haze. I had the element of surprise, at least. How was I going to handle this? Part of me wanted to march into the bedroom and confront her right then, demand answers, unleash the hurt and fury roiling inside me. But another part, the calmer, rational side that had seen me through crises at work, held me back. Once I confronted her, there was no undoing that moment. She could lie, deflect, go into defense mode. If I let her know about the journal, she might clam up or twist things. And Adam, I needed to figure out what to do about him too. My eyes fell to the journal again. There were earlier pages. My shaking fingers began flipping back through older entries, scanning for telltale names or hints. If she documented everything, the truth of how far this went might be buried in here. On an entry dated mid-August, I found mention of a first kiss after too much wine at the Parkers' movie night, and her guilt about it the next day. Another entry described an encounter in Adam's car while I was at a work conference out of town. My stomach lurched as she described her emotional turmoil and how it just happened the first time they slept together, about 2 months ago at his house when Sam was visiting her sister. Each revelation was a dagger, but perversely I kept going, as if arming myself with knowledge would somehow help me survive the blow. I learned that this affair had been going on for at least a couple of months in secret. They had tried to end it only to restart. Emily wrote about being addicted to the excitement, how she never planned to fall for him. Fall for him. Did she love Adam? She didn't use that word in what I read, but she clearly had strong feelings or infatuation. I slammed the journal shut, unable to stomach more. My jaw hurt. I realized I was clenching my teeth painfully. Footsteps creaked above, Emily moving about, likely dressing after her shower. "Get out of here," a voice in my head urged. I needed to be away from her, if only to prevent doing or saying something rash in front of our kids. But it was evening. The kids were asleep. If I confronted her now and things exploded into a fight, they'd wake and be terrified. No, I couldn't let that happen. Despite the hurricane inside me, I had to shield Ben and Clara from this, at least until I had a plan. I sucked in a deep breath, put the journal back, pretend nothing is wrong, at least for tonight. With shaking hands, I placed the journal exactly as I'd found it, open to the page she left it on. I grabbed Clara's stuffed bunny and stepped out of the office, gently closing the door as if I hadn't been in there at all. I hurried to Clara's room and laid Mr. Bunny by her side. She stirred slightly, mumbling in her sleep, and I brushed a kiss on her forehead. My sweet, innocent children. How was I going to protect them from the storm that was coming? As I exited her room, I heard our bedroom door open down the hall. Light from inside spilled into the dim corridor. Quickly, I slipped into the guest bedroom across from the kids' rooms, just as I saw Emily padding to the top of the stairs out of the corner of my eye. My heart pounded. The guest room was dark. I eased the door almost shut and listened. Emily's footsteps came down the stairs slowly. "Ethan?" she called softly, maybe not seeing me downstairs and wondering where I was. I held my breath, my mind racing for an excuse to not face her directly. The last thing I could do was act normally, but I had to, for now. She didn't call again. After a minute, I heard her in the kitchen, the clink of a glass, perhaps getting water. My hands curled into fists so tight my nails bit into my palms. I couldn't stand knowing she was only a few yards away, completely unaware that her private confessions had blown my world apart. It took every ounce of willpower to unclench my fists and step out of the guest room. I schooled my face into as neutral an expression as possible and descended the stairs. She was at the sink wearing comfy pajama shorts and one of my old college t-shirts, her damp hair combed back. Just a normal evening image of my wife, except now I knew better. I knew the truth lurking behind that seemingly innocent face. "Hey," I said, relieved my voice came out steady enough. She turned, surprised. "There you are. I was wondering." Her brows furrowed slightly. "Is everything all right? You look pale." I forced a shrug, moving past her to grab a glass from the cabinet. "Yeah, fine, just tired. I was checking on the kids and might have dozed off for a minute in the chair in their room. It wasn't a terrible lie. I often sat with them until they settled." She seemed to accept it, her concerned expression melting into a gentle smile. "Long day." She stepped closer and wrapped her arms around me from the side, leaning her head on my shoulder. "You did great today, honey. Thank you for helping so much with everything." Her voice was tender and grateful. It made my skin crawl. I stared straight ahead, focusing on the faucet as I filled my glass with cold water, to hide the storm in my eyes. Her body pressed to mine, normally a comfort, now made me stiffen. Did she notice? She pulled back slightly. "Are you sure you're okay?" I nodded quickly and gulped the water to avoid having to speak immediately. I was afraid if I opened my mouth I might scream or accuse or break down. "Just beat. Might be coming down with something," I hedged. I avoided eye contact by fussing with the glass, but I caught a glimpse of her face. She looked unconvinced. "You've been working really hard lately," she said softly. reaching up to feel my forehead as if checking for a fever. I fought not to flinch. Maybe you should go to bed early. Yeah, I think I will, I replied, setting the glass down. My voice sounded distant in my own ears. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could sense her eyes on me, but I didn't dare meet them. Finally, she cleared her throat. Well, I'm going to read for a bit. Do you want me to come up with you? I stiffened at the thought of lying in bed beside her tonight. No, that's okay. I'll probably knock out as soon as my head hits the pillow. You enjoy your book. The words came out clipped, but I tried to add a weak smile to soften it. Her smile faded, and a tiny crease formed between her brows. She stepped forward and pressed the back of her hand to my cheek and forehead again, insistent. You don't feel feverish. I shrugged off her hand as nonchalantly as I could. Maybe just a migraine or something. I'll be fine. You didn't even change, she noted softly, touching my still-clothed shoulder. Come to bed, honey. You don't have to sleep in here alone. The irony of her invitation stung. She wanted me in our marital bed, likely to maintain normalcy, while having cheated in that very bed or at least intending to carry on deceiving me. Revulsion and heartbreak warred within me, but I kept my face turned away under the guise of rubbing my temple. It's actually darker and quieter in here, I lied smoothly. My head is pounding a bit, and I think the silence will help. She paused. I could sense her uncertainty, not used to me pushing her away. We seldom slept apart unless I was traveling. If she pressed too much, I was on the verge of snapping, so I prayed she wouldn't. Finally, she sighed. All right, if that's what you need. Can I get you anything? Ibuprofen? Water? I'm okay, I said, just need rest. Okay, she repeated, clearly reluctant. She leaned down and I felt her lips on the crown of my head in a gentle kiss. The gesture nearly broke me anew. It was so tender, so familiar, yet I knew it was tainted. I stayed rigid. Good night, she whispered. I hope you feel better, babe. I mumbled a thanks without looking at her. A moment later, she padded upstairs, pulling the door halfway closed behind her. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Each little interaction with her now felt like walking through a minefield of emotions. But the fact I managed to handle it gave me a small boost of confidence. I could do this. I could keep the FAA'd until the right time. Lying back on the guest bed, fully clothed, I finally allowed a few tears to escape, hot streaks down my face in the darkness. In the silence of that spare room, I cried softly, face pressed into a pillow to muffle the sound. How could she? The thought screamed in my head on repeat. How could she do this to us, to our family? With my best friend? I might have stayed there all night, drowning in anguish, but I knew I had to move. I needed an outlet, some clarity. I forced myself to move quietly through the house, checking that the front door was locked and the alarm set. My actions were automatic, muscle memory, while my brain spun wildly. Upstairs, I avoided looking at our bedroom door, cracked open with a sliver of light. She was probably sitting up reading, like she said. I couldn't bear the sight. Instead, I slipped into the dark guest room I'd hidden in earlier. Collapsing onto the bed, I finally allowed the grief and fury to flow. Silent, heaving sobs racked my chest, though I bit down hard on the pillow to keep from making noise. My throat constricted with the effort of holding everything in. Why? The question screamed in my head with no answer. Eventually, after an eternity of tears and shaking, the sobs tapered. In their wake came a cold, steely resolve that began to set in. I realized I was far from defeated. No, a part of me was already strategizing, even as another part grieved. I might be a good man, a loving father and husband, but I was not someone who would roll over when betrayed. Emily and Adam had no idea that I was now aware of their treachery. They were likely carrying on pretending everything was normal, thinking I was a clueless fool. That thought ignited a spark of anger, which was good. It cut through the despair and gave me something to hold on to. I inhaled deeply, shakily. You need a plan, I told myself. If I confronted them blindly, I'd get half-truths and emotional manipulation. But if I played it smart, I could protect my children, secure my interests, and make those two face the consequences of what they'd done. One thing was clear as crystal: my marriage was over. That realization hurt like tearing off a limb, but it was true. Even if Emily begged forgiveness, even if she swore it was a horrible mistake, she'd already written in her journal it happened multiple times and that she had feelings. There was no coming back from that for me. The trust was shattered irreparably. The love, The love was still there, agonizingly. I loved the woman I thought she was, but the woman who could do this was someone else entirely. A stranger wearing my wife's face. I squeezed my eyes shut, breathing through a fresh wave of pain. Focus, Ethan. Think steps ahead. First, I needed undeniable evidence beyond the journal in case it became a battle, especially regarding custody of the kids in divorce proceedings. The journal itself was a goldmine of admission, but it was privately obtained and she might say I violated her privacy or even claim it's fiction. I needed something more concrete, something that couldn't be dismissed. Catching them in the act would be ideal. But would they risk meeting now? The journal said they'd agreed to cool it after that Thursday rendezvous. But who knows? Sometimes these promises fail, especially if they thought I was oblivious. Maybe I could force an opportunity. If I gave them a chance to meet, I might catch them together or at least gather proof of contact. I recalled that I had seen a text from Adam on Emily's phone by accident that very day. That's what initially tipped me off before I even knew it. Yes, earlier in the afternoon, my phone had buzzed with a text from an unknown number meant for Emily. I hadn't had time to process it in full then, but now it snapped into focus. You were incredible today. Can't wait for tomorrow. I had replied mischievously, thinking it a wrong number. Thanks, babe. Remind me again about the time and place. To which the person replied, Are you using Shell's phone? Be sure to delete it. Can't have Sheldon suspecting something too soon. Sure, at our house. I remembered freezing on the stairs reading that. Sheldon was the nickname Adam and Samantha sometimes called me, from an old inside joke about the Big Bang Theory. Shell must have been his shorthand for me. He thought he was texting Emily, warning her about me suspecting something. In the shock of that moment, I'd suppressed it, but subconsciously, it had driven me to see that the number looked familiar. No doubt it was Adam's burner phone. That's why I ended up checking Emily's journal in the first place. So yes, there was a text message trail to retrieve. If I could somehow get hold of her phone or the backup logs, I could have copies of incriminating messages. I also realized I needed an ally, Sam. Dear God, poor Samantha. She had no idea as far as I knew. Or did she? The journal mentioned Adam saying he might tell her everything, but he hadn't yet clearly given Sam's normal behavior at the barbecue. I had to tell Sam. She deserved to know the truth about her husband, and she could become a powerful ally in taking them to task. If I told her too soon, though, it might complicate my evidence gathering. But morally, I couldn't leave her in the dark either. Perhaps I could coordinate with her. Yes, that made sense. Sam was smart and strong. Together we could confirm the affair beyond any doubt and confront our cheating spouses in unison, or at least in a controlled way. The outline of a plan began forming. I would reach out to Sam privately, show her the evidence. Maybe not the journal pages at first, though I would if needed, and perhaps set a trap. For example, tricking Emily and Adam into meeting by giving them an opportunity, then catching them red-handed, ideally with Sam present to witness. I wiped my face, resolving myself to stay calm and cunning. For the sake of my children and my own dignity, I would not blow up without preparation. Instead, I'd gather evidence quietly, protect my assets, and then unleash hell on the people who betrayed me. In the darkness, I made a silent promise. I would make sure Emily and Adam deeply regretted the choices they had made. They thought they were going to get away with sneaking around, that I would remain their oblivious safety net while they had their fun. They were gravely mistaken. I sat up and pulled out my phone, lowering the brightness. It was past 11 p.m. now. I considered texting Adam or Emily with some biting remark, but refrained. Instead, I opened my contacts and found the number of an attorney friend from college, Mark Linton, who practiced family law now. I typed a quick message. Mark, it's Ethan. I have a serious personal situation and might need your counsel soon. Can we talk Monday? I didn't send it yet. I'd review in the morning with a clearer head, but it felt good drafting it. Then I scrolled to Sam's number. I'd never had any heavy conversation with Samantha by text, usually just group planning things for the families. Would it be better to talk in person? Absolutely. Maybe I could invite her to coffee under some pretext that wouldn't arouse Emily's suspicion. I decided on being vague and urgent enough that she'd come without asking Emily. With trembling thumbs, I composed, Hi, Sam. I need to talk to you in person about something important. Could we meet privately tomorrow morning? I stared at the message, nerves jangling, then hit send. Almost immediately, 3 gray dots danced. She was typing back despite the late hour. Sam, sure. Is everything okay? You sound serious. Me. It's about something I found out. I'm sorry to be cryptic. Can we meet at Bluebird Cafe around 9:30? After kid drop-off. Sam, okay. I'll be there. Now I'm worried. Me. We'll talk tomorrow, promise. Thank you, Sam. Sam, all right. Try to get some rest, okay? See you in the morning. I set the phone aside, heart heavy but determined. That night was torturously long. I might have slept in brief fits, exhaustion eventually dragging me under for an hour here and there, but each time I awoke, reality came crashing back down, adrenaline surging anew. I alternated between gut-wrenching sadness and seething anger, replaying memories with new lenses. Was she with him that afternoon when she texted me she'd be working late? Did he brush by me with a smug grin at the last family dinner knowing he had this secret? Every thought was poison. Yet, through it all, I clung to the idea of action. I would not be a passive victim of their betrayal. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of their reckoning. Chapter 3. Allies in Betrayal. Morning came, and with it a cold clarity. By the time I heard Emily moving around with the kids, I had already showered and dressed. I emerged from the guest room claiming I had woken early with that migraine. She looked concerned but hurried with the morning routine. We didn't have much conversation beyond coordinating logistics. Ben had a friend's birthday party later. Clara needed a ride to her dance class. I nodded along, playing the role of the tired, slightly ill husband who was grateful his wife could handle things. I'm going to head to the office for a bit, I lied casually after breakfast. I promised a colleague I'd help review a proposal. Think you can manage the munchkins until this afternoon? Of course, she said. She looked me over, reaching to straighten my shirt collar. But if you're not feeling well, maybe you should rest instead. Work can wait. The audacity of her concern made my stomach churn, but I forced a small smile. I'll be fine. I'll pop a couple of Excedrin. She accepted that with a light kiss on my cheek. I stiffened just slightly, but she didn't seem to notice, turning to corral the kids. As I left, the kids called out cheerful goodbyes. I waved, heart twisting at how innocent they were to the upheaval about to crash into their lives. I did swing by the office, only to quickly print some personal documents I might need, bank statements, our mortgage info, etc., just in case. My mind was already on legal strategy, another sign I was operating in crisis mode. By 9:20, I arrived at Bluebird Cafe, a quiet, cozy spot in downtown SLC. I chose a corner table away from others and sat facing the door, nursing a plain coffee I'd ordered to justify my early arrival. I was nervous, and rightfully so. I was about to detonate a bomb in Sam's life. My leg bounced under the table. How do you tell someone their spouse and their best friend betrayed them? When Sam walked in promptly at 9:30, I stood up to wave her over. She smiled brightly on seeing me, but as she got closer I could see worry clouding her green eyes. She was typically a sunny, petite woman with chestnut brown hair and a kind face. Today she wore casual jeans and a light sweater, looking every bit the friendly neighbor any family would love. My heart clenched knowing I was about to break it. "Hey you," she greeted, setting her purse down. "You have no idea the scenarios I've imagined since your text. Is it a surprise party for someone? Are you moving? Are you—" She widened her eyes in mock gasp. "Secretly a CIA agent recruiting me?" She chuckled, clearly trying to keep it light and probe at the same time. I gave a faint half-smile. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to alarm you, but what I have to say, it's not exactly coffee shop talk. Still, I thought neutral ground would be best." Her smile faltered and genuine concern took over. "You're scaring me now, Ethan." "What is it?" I realized I was still standing awkwardly, so I gestured for her to sit as I did the same. My mouth felt dry. I had run through this in my head, but now the words stuck. "Let's order something first," I suggested gently. "I think we both might need a drink." She nodded, indulging my delay. We quickly got her a latte from the counter, then settled back in our little corner. The cafe was calm at this hour, just a soft indie song playing, and a few patrons scattered about. Sam cupped her mug, studying me. "Ethan, whatever it is, you can tell me. It's just us here." I realized I was twisting my wedding ring around my finger. A nervous tick. I forced myself to still my hands. There was no way to cushion this blow, so I opted for direct and compassionate. I lowered my voice. Sam, I found out something on Saturday, something about Emily, and I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. And Adam. Even without full context, some intuition flared in her expression. A flicker of dread. Okay, she said, drawn out, bracing herself. I figured the kindest cut was quick. I discovered that Emily and Adam have been having an affair. It was the first time I'd spoken the awful truth aloud. It landed heavily on the table between us. For a moment, she just stared, as if I'd started speaking a foreign language. She blinked, gave a confused half-laugh. I'm sorry, what? My heart broke for her. I know how insane it sounds. I wouldn't believe it either if I hadn't seen proof. But it's true. She shook her head slowly, eyes wide and searching mine for any hint of a joke or lie. Finding none, her face went pale. No, no, there's got to be a mistake. Adam would never. Emily? They wouldn't. She trailed off as her voice choked. I hated this. I hated being the one to shatter her world. But better from a friend than in some crueler way. I opened my bag and quietly slid out Emily's journal, which I'd brought tucked in a file. I had debated whether to reveal it, but it was the most concrete evidence. I also had printed a copy of the text exchange. This is Emily's journal, I said softly. I found it by accident yesterday. She documented a lot. I opened to a flagged page and slid it across to her. This entry describes them meeting at a hotel. Just read it. Sam looked at the notebook as if it were a bomb. Hesitantly, she peered at the page. Her eyes skimmed the lines. I watched her face shift from confusion to dawning horror, her hand flying to her mouth. Her breathing quickened. She looked up at me, eyes filling. That son of a, she began, then cut herself off, voice trembling. And I can't believe. Her composure crumpled. A few tears spilled over. I know, I whispered. I'm so sorry. She wiped her cheeks angrily. He was with her Thursday, wasn't he? When he said he had a client meeting out of town? She was connecting dots rapidly. I nodded. Yes, they spent the afternoon at a Hampton Inn. She wrote about it. Sam's face contorted in disgust and grief. She pushed the journal away, covering her face with both hands now. For a moment, her shoulders shook with silent sobs. I reached out a tentative hand and touched her arm. Sam, I know it's horrible, but I'm here. We're in this together. She sniffled and lowered her hands. Her eyes were red, but a fierce resolve gleamed through the tears. Those bastards, she spat quietly. How long? Since July, at least, I answered. From what I gathered, they first got together around then. It continued on and off. The journal suggests maybe 3 or 4 times physically. She let out a bitter laugh. Oh, only 3 or 4? That makes it fine then, right? She shook her head, anger rising to shield the hurt. God, I feel like such an idiot. I never saw this coming. Neither did I said, my own voice raw. They hid it well. Too well. She took a deep, shuddering breath. Have you confronted them? I shook my head. Not yet. I found out last night and I wanted to talk to you first. I didn't want either of them warning the other or twisting the narrative. Her jaw tightened. You're right. We need to be smart. She looked at me searchingly. What do you want to do? I was struck by her strength in this moment, and it fortified me too. I think we need more evidence, or at least a plan to catch them so they can't deny it. The journal is damning, but Emily could claim it's fiction or that I misread. Adam could gaslight you if it's just our word. She nodded. He might, and I almost would want to see it with my own eyes. She winced at the thought, or at least hear them admit it. I was thinking, I said slowly, maybe we set a trap. Give them an opportunity to meet and catch them, or confront them separately but simultaneously so they can't warn each other. Sam's tear-streaked face hardened into a resolve that mirrored mine. She was on board. Like what? Trick them into thinking we're both out and see if they meet? Exactly, I said. An idea formed. For example, I could tell Emily I'm working late tomorrow and you could tell Adam you're driving to your sister's overnight. If they think they have a free evening, maybe they'd try to meet at one of your houses or somewhere. Sam grimaced but nodded. They probably would, and we could be lying in wait. I reached into my bag again. Also, I have this. I produced the printed text exchange that I'd recovered from our phone account server that morning. I had tech-savvy skills, after all, and managed to retrieve that message I saw on Saturday by accessing our cloud backup. I slid the paper to Sam. This is a text Adam mistakenly sent to Emily's phone, which I intercepted. It leaves little doubt. She read the short transcript, hands trembling. You were incredible today. Can't wait for tomorrow, she read aloud bitterly. The nerve. And him saying can't have Sheldon suspecting something. He used your name as a code. Jesus. I saw her eyes flame and then well up again. She squeezed them shut. Ethan, I want to destroy them for this, she hissed quietly. But more than that, I want to get through this with my sanity. I placed my hand over hers. We'll get through it, I assured, echoing her phrasing. First things first. Confront and end it. Then we worry about aftermath like divorce. She bit her lip. Divorce? God. The word hung heavy. I nodded. I'm seeing a lawyer this afternoon, I admitted. Just to be prepared. She let out a breath. I should do the same. I never imagined. She trailed off, then firmed up. All right, let's coordinate. We confront them, and then we both file. No mercy. I agreed. There was little else to salvage. For the next 30 minutes, we spoke in hushed, urgent tones, forming our battle plan. We decided tomorrow, Monday night, would be D-Day. It was quick, but we felt neither of us wanted to endure the charade longer than necessary. We arranged that I would tell Emily I had a late work emergency and might crash at a colleague's place if it went late, so she wouldn't expect me home. Sam would tell Adam her sister needed her overnight due to an emergency. With both spouses ostensibly away, the cheaters might plan to meet, likely at Adam and Sam's house, since it was empty and just a 10-minute drive away for Emily. Sam mentioned that Monday nights Adam usually played basketball with friends, but he could easily cancel if he thought he had a better plan. If they don't take the bait and meet, we still confront them separately that night at a set time, I suggested. Say 9 p.m.? She nodded. Okay. If by 8:30 we don't see any movement, I'll have Adam meet me at home to talk, and you do the same with Emily. Then drop the hammer. Part of me almost hoped they'd go for the rendezvous. Somehow seeing them together would make it easier to be done with it, as painful as that visual would be. Sam, I think, felt similarly. Before we parted, Sam looked at me with sympathy and determination. Thank you for telling me, she said, voice wavering. I hate that we're in this, but I'm glad I'm not alone in it. I squeezed her hand gently. You're not alone. We have each other's back on this. She managed a small, sad smile. Let's go give them hell. We hugged tightly in the parking lot. It struck me that fate had made us co-victims in this cruel scenario, and an unspoken bond formed from that. As I drove away, I finally allowed a grim smile. Emily and Adam thought they were being clever, sneaking and plotting. Now we were the ones plotting, and they wouldn't see it coming. The rest of Sunday felt like moving underwater. At home, I kept interactions minimal. Emily was a bit perplexed at my distance. I claimed my headache was lingering. She even offered to massage my temples at one point, but I evaded it. I was civil to her, careful not to tip my hand, but it was one of the hardest performances of my life. Every time I looked at her, I saw a stranger. When she smiled innocently or hummed while folding laundry, I wanted to scream, "How could you?" But I swallowed it down. Soon, I told myself, just get to tomorrow night. I texted quietly with Sam using a secure app. We figured better safe than sorry in case they snooped phones. We fine-tuned our plan. Monday after work, she would swing by my place to drop off some documents. Actually, to pick me up discreetly. I'd tell Emily I needed a ride to the office to get my car, cover story. Then Sam and I would hide my truck somewhere and stake out the Parker house together in her car. We'd wait to see if Emily showed up there after dinner time. If yes, confront them both there. If no, enact simultaneous confrontation plan B. That evening, I prepared a bag with essentials, anticipating I wouldn't be sleeping at home after the confrontation. Likely I'd go to my parents with the kids or something. The thought of the kids hit me hardest. I dreaded their pain and confusion. But one step at a time. Monday dawned. Emily was in good spirits. She often was on Mondays since she enjoyed her work as a paralegal at a law firm. She pecked me goodbye cheerily, none the wiser. I managed a neutral smile. At work, I met with my lawyer friend Mark over lunch. I laid out the basics, minus some explicit details for brevity and dignity. He shook his head in disgust on my behalf and promised to draw up a divorce petition alleging adultery by the end of the week. I told him things might get dramatic that night, and he advised me to avoid physical altercations. I half chuckled. I wasn't planning to assault anyone, but knowing what might happen, I appreciated the reminder. He also recommended I quietly move half our joint funds to a separate account before confrontation to avoid any impulsive financial damage. I took that advice immediately afterward, transferring a chunk of savings into an account in my name only. Emily would see it eventually, but by then it wouldn't matter. Late afternoon, Sam and I checked in via text. Sam, I'm picking up the kids from school and dropping them at my mom's for a sleepover. Told them I have to help Aunt Carol overnight. They were fine with it. Me? Smart. My parents are on standby to take mine tomorrow if needed. Emily thinks I'm working late and sleeping over at friends if it goes too late. Sam. I told Adam I'm driving to Logan to stay with my sister because she isn't feeling well. He bought it. He even gave me a kiss and said, "Drive safe, babe." Me. Hang in there, a few more hours. Sam. I'll see you at 6 by your place. Me. See you then. As 6 p.m. approached, my nerves were jangling like live wires. I had gone home at my usual time, feigned normalcy through dinner with Emily and the kids, and then theatrically sighed about an urgent issue at work. I hate to do this, but I have to go back in tonight, I said, checking my watch. Might even be an all-nighter. Emily looked sympathetic. Oh no. Anything I can help with? I forced a weary smile. Not unless you suddenly understand aeronautical stress tests. She laughed lightly and shook her head. I'm afraid not. I'll keep your side of the bed warm. She hesitated, then asked, Are you sure you shouldn't just take tomorrow off if you're working all night? I'm sure, I said. I'll crash at Mike's place if it gets too late rather than driving back exhausted. Mike was a colleague she had met. A plausible cover. She nodded. All right, be careful. And text me if you need anything, okay? She walked me to the door, giving me a lingering kiss. I steeled myself not to recoil. It took all my acting ability to kiss her back gently. The gall of her to be this caring after what she did twisted something in me, but I stayed cool. Love you, she said softly. Those words stung like acid. I managed a quiet, love you too, praying my voice didn't betray me. As I stepped out, my heart thundered. That might be the last time I said those words to her. The final scene of a farce of a marriage. Sam's car, a silver Camry, rolled up to the curb moments later. I trotted down and slid into the passenger seat, ducking my head. Emily wasn't likely watching from the window, but no chances. Sam wore a baseball cap and had her hair tucked up, perhaps for anonymity. I realized I had done similarly by instinct, donning a plain black hoodie. We were like two covert operatives. Hey, I greeted quietly. Hey, she replied. Her face was tense but determined. Ready? I nodded, clicking my seatbelt. We drove off into the dusk, a heavy silence between us, but a mutual understanding. A few blocks away, we pulled over and transferred to my truck, leaving her Camry parked on a side street. We decided my truck, being taller, might give a better vantage point if parked up the street from the Parkers. Plus, if we needed to give chase or show up unexpectedly, I'd prefer my vehicle. As we headed toward her house, Sam took out her phone. Just letting Mom know I'll pick up the kids tomorrow, she murmured. She tapped out a message. I realized I should warn my own folks soon. I texted my dad. Might need you and Mom to take Ben and Clara for a couple days. We'll explain later. He replied almost immediately that they would do whatever we needed. It was full dark when we turned onto Maple Lane, the Parkers' quiet tree-lined street. We parked half a block down, under a large maple whose dense branches would obscure us. From there, we had a partial view of the front of their house. All looked quiet. Adam's car was in the driveway. He was home. Sam had confirmed earlier by a text to him that he wasn't playing basketball tonight. He'd lied easily, saying he was tired. We settled in to wait. My heart thudded so loudly I wondered if Sam could hear it. She was nervously jiggling her leg. For long minutes, nothing happened. Then a little after 7:30, headlights appeared down the street. A car approached, Emily's white SUV. I felt Sam tense beside me as it turned into the Parkers' driveway. I had a surreal out-of-body sensation. There's my wife driving to my best friend's house for a secret tryst, thinking I'm clueless and away. Seeing it confirmed outside of the journal's pages made my blood boil despite the cold calm I tried to maintain. Emily got out of her car, glanced around briefly, then hurried up to the front door. She had changed after I left, now wearing a casual black dress and flats. She still looked like my Emily, but in this context she seemed like a stranger, a trespasser in our friend's home. She knocked lightly. Sam mentioned Adam likely left the door unlocked for her, but she must not have known. A second later, the door opened and Adam appeared, ushering her inside with a quick movement. I caught a glimpse of his face, anxious, eager. Then the door shut. Sam let out a breath she'd been holding. Her hands were gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles were white. "They're inside," she whispered, anger and hurt warring in her tone. "Yeah," I replied quietly. Seeing it stirred a swirl of emotions in me, but oddly, alongside the fury, I felt relief. There was no more doubt. We had them. We shared a look. "Ready?" I asked. She nodded, jaw clenched. "Ready?" I reached behind my seat and pulled out a small voice recorder I'd brought. "I'm going to record the confrontation just for evidence sake." "Good idea," she said. She took out her phone and did the same, setting it to record audio. Heart pounding, I stepped out of the truck. Sam emerged from the other side. Together we marched down the sidewalk toward the house, two grim avenging spirits descending on unsuspecting sinners. The warm glow of the lights spilled from the living room window. Through the sheer curtains I could see vague shapes, Emily and Adam standing somewhat apart talking. They hadn't moved further into the house yet. We went up the walkway. I fought the urge to just barge in. Instead, Sam quietly slid her key into the front lock. She had her own key to her house, of course. She looked at me once, took a breath, and turned it. The front door swung open. Emily and Adam were just a few feet away in the foyer, facing each other. They both jolted in surprise, turning toward us. The tableau froze, the four of us suspended for a heartbeat in the shock of that moment. Emily's eyes went wide as saucers, her face draining of color when she registered me standing there with Sam. Adam's mouth fell open, his hand reflexively dropping from where it had been lightly resting on Emily's arm. They looked like children caught stealing cookies. For a half second, no one spoke. You could hear the tick of the Parker's hall clock and the faint hum of the fridge. Then I stepped forward, crossing the threshold. My voice came out eerily calm, but loud enough to crack the silence. "Don't let us interrupt. I believe you two were in the middle of something." Emily made a strangled sound in her throat. Adam blinked rapidly, raising his hands as if warding off a blow. This isn't what it looks like," he stammered. Sam stepped up beside me, her face hardened in righteous fury. "Really?" she hissed. "Because it looks like my husband and my best friend's wife meeting in secret, so please, enlighten us. What is it, if not that?" Emily's lips trembled. "Sam, Ethan," she managed in a thin voice. Her eyes brimmed with tears instantly, a mixture of terror and guilt. I can explain." I felt oddly detached in that moment, watching them squirm. All my rehearsed speeches flew out of my head. The anger that had simmered for days now crystallized into an icy focus. "By all means, explain," I said, stepping fully into the house. I shut the door behind us almost politely. "Explain how my wife and my supposed best friend thought it was okay to do this." I gestured around the foyer. Behind our backs. Adam's face flushed deep red. He looked to Sam desperately. "Sam, I'm so sorry," he began, voice cracking. "It just happened." "Stop," she snapped, holding up a hand. I saw her eyes shining with unshed tears, though her voice was steel. "Don't you dare give me some cliche. We know damn well what's been going on. We're not here to listen to lies." Emily took a step toward me, hands outstretched pleadingly. "Ethan, please." I involuntarily stepped back and she halted. It hurt more than I expected to recoil from the woman I loved. But I couldn't bear her touching me. Not now. "How long?" I demanded, staring at her. "How long have you been sneaking around?" She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She glanced at Adam, then at the floor, ashamed. I shifted my gaze to Adam. Maybe you'd like to answer. July, wasn't it? At the school movie night? Or was it earlier?" His eyes widened. He realized we knew specifics. You read?" He looked at Emily. "You wrote it down?" he asked her in a disbelieving whisper, as if this betrayal of their trust offended him more than what they'd done to us. That snapped something in Sam. She let out a derisive laugh. Oh, unbelievable. You're upset she wrote it down, Adam? Her voice rose. You're lucky all she did was write in a journal and not broadcast it on the 6 o'clock news. Emily started sobbing, quietly at first. I'm so sorry, she choked out. I'm sorry. She looked utterly pitiful, tears streaming, hands clasped as if praying for mercy. I felt a pang in my chest, but I hardened myself, reminding my heart of the image of her walking into this house to meet him. I pulled the journal out of my jacket and tossed it onto a side table. We know everything, I said evenly. Your little diary spared no detail. Emily's eyes flickered to the notebook, then back to me. She looked like she might collapse from shame. Ethan, I never wanted you to find out like this, she sobbed. A strangled, incredulous laugh escaped me. Oh, you plan to keep me in the dark forever then? Let me keep playing the loving husband fool. Adam stepped forward, hands still raised as if to calm a dangerous animal. Ethan, man, listen. I whirled on him. No, you listen, I snarled, my calm facade cracking. I took a step, getting in his face. He involuntarily shrank back. I was taller and at the moment, clearly intimidating. You were my brother, I growled. I trusted you with everything, my family, my kids. And what did you do? You slept with my wife in my home at hotels, God knows where else. You sat at my table and laughed with me, knowing you were betraying me. Each accusation made him flinch as if struck. I know, he croaked. I'm a piece of crap. I have no excuse. It was the worst mistake of my life. Sam stepped beside me, voice trembling now with emotion. And you, she said to Emily, who was shaking and crying silently. I loved you like a sister. I confided in you. I babysat your children while you ran off to screw my husband. Her composure failed, and a sob of anger broke from her. How could you, Emily? How could you do this to us, to your kids? Was it worth it? Emily covered her face with her hands, sobbing openly. No, it wasn't worth it, she cried. I was stupid and selfish, and I don't have any excuse. I thought, she gulped, looking at me with agony, I thought I'd never get caught, and that it would just burn out. I never meant to hurt either of you. I never stopped loving you, Ethan, or you, Sam. I was just... Don't, I said coldly. Don't you dare try to claim you love us. People don't do this to those they love. She reached toward me again, desperate. I do love you, she insisted through tears. I never stopped. This was never about not loving you. I shook my head in disgust. It was about you loving yourself more. I could see she wanted to argue but had no ground. Adam put a hand on his forehead. God, he muttered. We really screwed up, Em. He looked at Sam, then me, voice cracking. I'm so sorry. To both of you, it was all my fault. Don't you dare throw her under the bus, Sam interjected sharply. But also don't act like she wasn't a willing participant. You two deserve each other. At that, Emily suddenly looked up, panicked. No, we don't. I mean, it wasn't like that. We weren't planning to be together or anything, she stammered. She glanced at Adam, then away. We swear, it was just this awful fling, a stupid midlife crisis or something. I almost laughed at how quickly she disavowed any deeper feelings. Adam looked hurt by it, but masked it. Interesting. I exchanged a glance with Sam and realized the same thought. They were already fracturing under pressure. Sam folded her arms tightly. Her initial fury was giving way to shaking grief. Whether it was just sex or not, you killed our marriages, she said softly, voice thick. There's no coming back from this. That hung in the air. Emily let out a wail and sank to her knees, literally collapsing in a heap on the hardwood foyer floor. Please, she sobbed, looking up at me through mascara-streaked eyes. Please don't leave me, Ethan. I'll do anything. I'll never speak to him again. I'll quit my job. I'll wear a tracking device if you want. Just please. Give me a chance to fix this. We can go to counseling. We can... She was babbling, hysterical. It was heartbreaking on a human level. But I steeled myself. I crouched down to her level, but out of reach. Emily, I said, not unkindly but firmly, there is no fixing this. You made a choice, many choices in fact, to betray me, betray our family. That can't be undone. She sobbed harder, grabbing at my jeans leg. I stood quickly to avoid her grasp. No, she moaned, realizing I meant it. Adam had tears in his eyes now too. He tentatively reached a hand toward Sam. Sam stepped back as if he'd struck her. Don't. You don't get to call me that ever again. Her voice broke on the last words and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. We're done, Adam. I'm I'm filing for divorce. It seemed saying it made it real for her and she choked on a sob. I moved to support her, putting a hand on her shoulder. My own eyes were wet now, but I kept my gaze on the two crumpled people in front of us. We both are, I said quietly. It's over. Emily began keening, a horrible, grief-stricken sound. No, she cried, doubling over on the floor as if in physical pain. Adam, still seemingly in shock, slumped against the wall, covering his face with one hand. Oh God, he muttered, perhaps only now feeling the true weight of consequence. We let them sob for a minute, standing there like judges delivering a sentence. I felt empty, drained of the rage that had fueled me here. In its place was a deep sorrow and disappointment. Finally, I cleared my throat. Here's what happens now, I said, voice raw but steady. Sam and I will be contacting lawyers in the morning, if we haven't already. We will be filing for divorce on grounds of adultery. We have plenty of evidence to support it. I nudged the journal on the table for emphasis. We intend to protect our interests, especially the kids. At the mention of children, Emily looked up, mascara smeared and eyes swollen. The kids, she whispered, as if just realizing this hit them too. Ethan, please, don't take my children away. I felt a flash of bitterness. Why? Afraid you'll betray them too? I snapped. Immediately, I regretted the low blow. Her affair was between adults. But the hurt was too fresh. She shook her head frantically. I love them more than anything. I was a terrible wife, but I've been a good mother, please. I sighed. You'll still be their mother, but I'll fight for primary custody, Emily. I won't lie. My tone softened just a fraction, seeing her despair. However, I have no intention of shutting you out of their lives. That would hurt them. I'm not out to punish the kids for what you did. She nodded wretchedly. Thank you, she whispered. Adam raised his head, looking at Sam with anguish. And us? I mean, custody of our dogs, or... He stopped, realizing how trivial that sounded next to kids. Sam gave a hollow laugh. I'll keep the dogs. You lost the privilege of even a goldfish. He nodded, defeated. I checked my watch. This nightmare had only lasted perhaps 15 minutes, though it felt like an eternity. We should go, I said softly to Sam. She agreed, wiping her face with a trembling hand. We turned to leave. Emily, still on her knees, shuffled forward a step. Ethan, she cried out hoarsely. I paused, hand on the doorknob, but didn't face her. Her voice cracked as she said, I'm so sorry. I know it means nothing now, but I am. If I could take it back. But you can't, I replied, still looking at the door. A tear finally escaped my eye, tracing hot down my cheek. Goodbye, Emily. I opened the door. Sam and I stepped out into the cool night. Behind us, I heard Emily wail and Adam begin to console her. Perhaps the first time he'd dared touch her in front of us, ironically. I shut the door on their sobs. Sam promptly broke down, covering her face and leaning into me. I put my arm around her and guided her to the truck. We climbed in, and for a long moment we just sat there, the engine off, both shaking with adrenaline and grief. Through the windshield, we saw the silhouette of them through the window. Emily clutching Adam, both of them weeping messes. The tableau of betrayal and consequence. I started the engine. Let's get out of here, I murmured. Sam nodded, hastily buckling in. As we drove away, she suddenly let out a scream, a primal sound of anguish that she had been holding in. It startled me, but I understood it. I felt the urge to do the same. So I did. After checking no one was around, I let out a roar of frustration and sorrow as I hit the steering wheel with the heel of my hand. It didn't fix anything, but it released a bit of the pressure. We parked around the corner a moment later where her car was. I insisted on following her to her parents to ensure she got there safely. She reluctantly agreed. On the ride, she called her mom from my truck and managed to explain between sobs that Adam cheated and she was coming over, asking them to keep the kids overnight. When I finally returned home, well past 9 p.m., I found the house dark and quiet. Emily wasn't home, of course. She likely went to her sister Sophie's or her parents'. Good. I didn't want another confrontation tonight. The kids were sound asleep, mercifully unaware their world had just been upended. I stood in their doorways, watching them breathe for a long time. silently vowing to protect them through what was to come. Before collapsing into the guest bed, I texted my dad that I'd explain in the morning, and that things indeed blew up. He replied simply that he loved me. I stared at the ceiling in the darkness, emotionally exhausted. It was done. The worst day of my life had played out, but at least I faced it head on. Eventually, in the wee hours of morning, I drifted into a shallow, dreamless sleep, one chapter of my life closing, another uncertain one about to begin. Chapter 4: Fallout and Rebuilding. The days and weeks that followed were a blur of pain, paperwork, and difficult conversations. True to our word, Sam and I filed for divorce immediately. Our cases, while separate, ran in parallel, a twisted symmetry to the end of our marriages that began with a twisted symmetry in their betrayal. Emily moved in temporarily with her younger sister Sophie. To her credit, she respected my request for space. Our interactions were limited to necessary discussions about the kids and the legal process. She sent me a long, heartfelt email at one point, probably because face-to-face I had been so cold, which essentially begged forgiveness again, swore that she accepted the divorce if that's what I truly needed, but that she would spend her life regretting her actions. I read it late one night, emotions swirling, and ultimately did not respond. What was there to say? It was too late for apologies to matter. We informed our children that mom and dad were getting divorced in a carefully managed conversation at a child therapist's office, as recommended. We kept it simple. We both loved them, but we wouldn't be married or living together anymore because we had grown apart. It's a surreal thing, lying to your kids' faces out of a sense of duty. I hated not telling them the truth, that their mother's choices blew up our family, but they were too young to carry that burden. Perhaps when they're older and ask, I won't hide it. For now, protecting their image of their mom took precedence. Even so, kids have a way of sensing things. Ben, who was 9 and perceptive, went through a period of being very angry at his mother, refusing to go to her on some of her scheduled days. I suspect he overheard things or picked up on the tension beyond what we tried to hide. I had to gently encourage him not to blame mom or think she didn't love him. That was hard, balancing my desire to be honest with not wanting to poison their relationship with her. Clara, only 7, mostly cried and asked if this meant we were all mad at each other. She clung to me a lot those first weeks, and to Emily too. We reassured her repeatedly that we both loved her, and that she'd still see us both, just separately. She eventually seemed to accept it, but became a little more anxious whenever routines changed. As for Adam, I effectively cut him from my life like a gangrenous limb. We didn't speak except through attorneys, and I avoided any setting he might be present. Not that he tried much, he had his hands full dealing with his own fallout. Samantha told me, in one of our late-night commiseration phone calls, that after our confrontation he sunk into some depression, tried feebly a few times to beg her for another chance, then ultimately seemed to accept the inevitable. He moved out of their house permanently, going to stay with a cousin in Ogden while they put the home on the market. Sam didn't want to keep living in that house with its tainted memories. Our friend group from church and the neighborhood was stunned by the news. Initially, we didn't share details publicly, just that we were divorcing. But small communities have a way of sniffing out the truth. I think one of Sophie's kids overheard something and spilled to someone. Soon enough, whispers of Adam and Emily had an affair were swirling. By the time I actually confirmed it to one close buddy in private, he already knew the gist. The social fallout was interesting. A few so-called friends either distanced themselves from me, perhaps uncomfortable with the drama, or in one couple's case actually tried to urge me to consider forgiving Emily for the kids' sake. That couple quietly left our circle after I told them politely to mind their own business. But the majority were overwhelmingly supportive of me and Sam. If Emily or Adam went to any gatherings, it was without my knowledge. As far as I know, they laid low to avoid public scorn. Emily confided tearfully one day, in a rare, emotional phone call we had about a month post-confrontation, that she had lost 2 of her closest girlfriends over it. They felt to betrayed themselves by her actions. I did feel a pang of pity then. She really had detonated her entire life, not just mine. Our divorce proceeded relatively smoothly, largely because Emily offered little resistance. Perhaps out of guilt, she signed the agreements that my lawyer drafted with minimal changes. I kept the house. We had equity, so I refinanced to pay out her half. We agreed on a custody split where I was the primary residential parent, and she had the kids every other weekend and one evening a week for dinner. Utah is a no-fault state officially, and courts usually favor joint arrangements, but Emily didn't push for more, likely knowing the kids were more rooted with me in the house and probably following the guidance of her own remorse. Financially, our incomes were similar. Her law firm had fast-tracked her to partner right before this blew up. Ironically, she ended up stepping down from consideration after, I think, due to stress. We waived alimony on both sides. Splitting assets was straightforward enough with the prenup. We never had being replaced by a private mediation where she ceded a bit more to me in exchange for me not dragging the affair into formal court filings that could be public record. It was a quiet, efficient dissolution. In less than 4 months, our divorce was finalized. I remember sitting in the judge's chambers, hearing him pronounce the marriage dissolved, and feeling a wave of conflicting emotions, relief, sorrow, and a strange sense of unreality. Emily dabbed her eyes with a tissue but smiled sadly at me afterward, as if trying to silently say, "I understand why it's come to this." I gave a polite nod and left without a word. It struck me that that was likely the last major life event we'd ever share in that capacity. Meanwhile, Sam's divorce took a bit longer, only because there was property to sell. Adam initially tried to negotiate some reconciliation, then turned spiteful when Sam refused. He fought a little on money but had no leg to stand on. They had no kids to leverage, and Sam's family had more money to afford a good lawyer. Eventually, he too signed the papers. Sam told me he moved to Seattle afterward for a fresh start. Good riddance. Throughout this turbulent period, Samantha and I remained each other's anchors. In the first couple months, it was purely a supportive friendship born of shared trauma. We frequently talked by phone after putting our kids to bed, sometimes for hours, just decompressing the day's events or our feelings. Some nights we vented anger. She would rail about how she found a hidden second phone of Adam's, or how discovering a particular charge on the credit card from a jewelry store — he apparently bought Emily a necklace at some point — made her blood boil. Other nights, one of us would break down crying and the other would listen quietly, offering gentle reassurances that we were going to be okay. We also coordinated a lot for practical reasons, ensuring one of us was always strong for the kids or swapping childcare now and then. For instance, the weekend I moved out some of Emily's remaining things from the house, Sam took my kids along with hers to the zoo to give me space. I returned the favor by having her nephews, whom she was caring for a lot while her sister recovered from an illness, over for a big playdate at our place when she had to meet with realtors or lawyers. In doing so, our lives became somewhat entwined. It was inevitable, I suppose, being that we were both single parents now with long-time connections. But I was cautious, and so was she about any appearances or rushing into anything beyond friendship. That said, there was one night about 6 months after the D-Day confrontation, after both divorces were final, when lines began to blur. We had taken the kids, my 2 and her sister's 3 that she watched often, out for pizza and mini-golf. It was a cheerful evening, and I realized I hadn't genuinely laughed like that in a long time. Seeing Sam relaxed and smiling, high-fiving my son when he got a hole-in-one, giving my daughter pointers on her swing, it warmed something in me that I thought had died with my marriage. After getting all the kids to sleep, her nephews crashed in sleeping bags in my living room alongside Ben and Clara, she and I sat on my back porch, under the summer stars, sharing a well-deserved beer. We were quiet, listening to the crickets. There was a comfortable familiarity, but also a charged awareness I hadn't felt before. At one point, she sighed. "Who would have imagined this a year ago?" she said. "Us sitting here like this?" "I think about that a lot," I admitted. If someone had told me a year back what would happen, I'd have said they were crazy. She turned to look at me. "Do you regret knowing the truth?" she asked softly. "Would it have been better if we never found out?" It was an interesting question. I took a moment. "It would have been easier maybe in the short term," I said slowly. "But living a lie? No, I don't regret it. What about you?" She shook her head, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "No, I hate what happened, but I'm glad I know. I'm freer now, in a way, even with all the sadness." I realized I felt the same. The betrayal shattered me, yes, but the marriage it broke had already had cracks I ignored. I was surviving, even growing, now outside of that shadow. We both set down our beers. There was a gentle summer breeze. She had a strand of hair blowing across her face, and without thinking, I reached and tucked it behind her ear. It was such a natural gesture, one I'd done to Emily countless times. But this time it felt different. Sam met my gaze, and I noticed truly for the first time how striking her green eyes were. Time seemed to slow. I leaned in slightly, giving her plenty of space to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she closed the distance and our lips met in a soft, brief kiss. It felt warm, comforting, right? But also overwhelming. We pulled back, both a bit startled at ourselves. "I'm sorry," I began, but she put a finger to my lips lightly. "Don't be," she whispered. "I liked it." "I did too," I confessed. We sat there holding hands, not rushing into anything more. Both of us had been starved for affection and trust, and in that simple kiss we found a spark of something we'd lost hope for, a possibility of happiness again. We decided to take it slowly, for the kids' sake and our own. We continued our combined family hangouts without immediately labeling it a relationship. But our bond grew deeper. It wasn't just born of shared pain, and it was as if we'd rediscovered each other anew beyond being just friends-in-law. I admired her kindness, her resilience, the way she could make my daughter giggle uncontrollably with silly dances. She later told me she'd fell in love with how I never spoke ill of Emily in front of the kids, how I prioritized being a good dad over being a bitter ex. About a year after the divorces, we cautiously started dating more formally. Dinners, just the two of us, going to a concert, etc. The chemistry was there, and so was the compatibility that had always existed platonically. It felt different than what I had with Emily. There was no pedestal, no high school sweetheart idealization. This was two adults with scars, choosing to heal together. The first time we spent the night together intimately was emotional for both of us. She cried afterward, not out of sadness, but release, and I held her feeling a mix of joy and disbelief that life had brought this closeness back to me. Our children, thankfully, adapted to our evolving relationship with surprising ease. They already saw each other often and viewed us as a sort of extended family. When Sam and I gently told them we were dating, the reactions ranged from my son's smug, "I knew it," to my daughter's happy dance at the idea of Aunt Sam being around all the time. Her nephews teasingly asked if I would be their Uncle Ethan now, which made Sam blush and laugh. We did worry about how Emily and even Adam would feel, but by that point, nearly 2 years post-affair, Emily was actually in a serious relationship of her own, ironically with an old law school colleague who, by all accounts, was a decent guy. She was hesitant but civil when I first told her that Sam and I had become involved. She said quietly, "I'm happy for you. You deserve it." I think it stung her on some level, naturally, but she had lost the right to object. As for Adam, I didn't give a damn what he thought. We heard through grapevine he didn't take the news well. Apparently, he called Sam and accused us of having had an affair all along. The nerve. She laughed at him and hung up. That was the last either of us heard from him directly. Fast forward another year and a half, I asked Samantha to marry me. It was a quiet proposal on a hike in the foothills overlooking the valley. Just us and a couple of nosy deer in the distance. I told her I had never imagined finding love or trust again after what happened, but that she had shown me it was possible. She cried, I cried. The ring barely fit because her fingers were swollen from the long hike. We got it resized later, but it was perfect. We had a small wedding the next summer. Just family and a few close friends, those who stuck by us. It was held in my parents' backyard under the same oak tree I climbed as a kid. Sam was radiant, in a simple ivory gown, and I have never felt a more unwavering certainty than when I said "I do" this time. Our kids stood up with us. Ben, as my best man, he lost a tooth that morning and proudly showed it in every photo. Clara and Sam's niece as flower girls tossing rose petals with serious concentration. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, there wasn't a dry eye in the yard. Not because it was sad, but because so many people had seen the journey of tears and healing we went through to reach that point. My mother basically sobbed from joy the entire time, and even Sam's father, an old stoic rancher type, got misty as he hugged us after. We kept the ceremony short and had a casual barbecue reception. Some habits die hard. We all liked a good BBQ gathering. In a touching, spontaneous moment during the toast, Ben asked to speak and said, "I'm just really happy because I used to be scared when everything went bad, but now we have an even bigger family and it's the best." That nearly sent Sam and I into ugly tears in front of everyone. But we managed to hold it together and just hug our son amid applause. Now, years later, sometimes I still marvel at the turns of fate. I won't paint it as a fairy tale. What we went through left marks. I had trust issues to work through, as did she. Early in our dating, a late meeting or a secretive vibe on a phone could trigger anxiety in one of us, and we had to learn to communicate and be patient. Therapy individually and together helped. We were determined not to punish each other for our ex-spouse's sins. The specter of the affair faded with time. Emily married her law school friend and even had another child with him. Our co-parenting relationship eventually stabilized into something cordial and pragmatic. We've attended school events and birthday parties in the same room without issue. She and Sam are not exactly buddies again, of course, but they are polite when required. The kids are what tie us all, and they've grown into remarkable young people despite the rocky start. As for Adam, he remains a ghost of the past. Neither Sam nor I have heard from him in forever. Last I knew, he had a series of short-lived relationships and job changes. I don't keep track. I did hear he didn't attend his own son's from a previous marriage college graduation, which made me shake my head. Losing us apparently taught him little about accountability. But that's no longer our concern. In quieter moments, sometimes Sam and I reflect on it all. Once, on the anniversary of the confrontation, she admitted, "I used to wish I'd never met either of you, him or Emily. But if I hadn't, I wouldn't have you or these kids in my life. So, I can't regret it anymore." It's a complicated feeling, acknowledging that unexpected good came from something so awful. I still feel flashes of anger or hurt very occasionally, like when I found an old photo buried in a box of a double date trip the four of us took to Lake Powell, all smiles and sunscreen. And I realized that even then, seeds of betrayal were probably already planted. But then I look at where I am now, sitting on the porch of our home, watching our gaggle of children, hers, mine, ours in every sense except blood, play on the lawn, and my wife, truly my partner in every way, bringing out glasses of fresh lemonade she made, laughing as the littlest one clings to her leg, and those dark thoughts evaporate, replaced by gratitude. I survived the worst someone can do to your heart, and I came out stronger, forging a new life from the broken pieces. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that life's twists are utterly unpredictable. The day I found that journal, I thought my world had ended. Little did I know, it was the messy, painful rebirth of a far better one. Betrayal broke me, but love, unexpected, undeserved, unconditional love, put me back together. And here I stand, wiser, war-scarred, but deeply at peace. The journal that once documented my nightmare now sits in a box in the attic, gathering dust. It's a part of the past I seldom revisit. I keep it only as a reminder of how far I've come and what matters most: honesty, loyalty, and the people who exemplify those qualities. As the sun sets on another tranquil Utah evening, I squeeze Sam's hand and catch her eye. No words are needed. The past may have been brutal, but the present is beautiful. We made it through the storm, together. And together, we'll weather anything else that comes our way.